My father sat me down when I was 5 years old. He put $5 on the table, and he said, "This is yours. You earned it." I had spent the whole week helping him organize the storage room at his shop, sweeping, stacking boxes, carrying things that were almost too heavy for me. And at the end of the week, he put that money in front of me like I had just closed a major business deal. I remember looking at it, $5. It felt like 5,000. And then he pulled out 3 plain white envelopes. He said, $1 goes here. This is for giving. Every month, you and I are going to find someone who needs help, and you are going to hand them this money yourself. Not me, you. $2 go here. This is yours to spend however you want. No rules, no judgment. You want candy? Buy candy. You want a toy? Buy a toy. But you decide. And $2 go here. This is your investment. And every week, I am going to add $1 of my own money to this envelope. So your 2 becomes 3. He looked at me and said, "Do you understand what just happened? You learned how to earn. You learned how to give. You learned how to enjoy. And you learned how to grow money while you sleep. You are 5 years old and you already know more than most men will ever learn." I did not fully understand it then, but I never forgot it. And when my own children turned 5, I did the exact same thing. This is how we build. This is how we have always built. You look around today and you see people struggling, families falling apart over money, generational wealth evaporating in a single decade. People wonder why certain families, especially in our culture, seem to move differently. They see the businesses, they see the real estate, they see the quiet confidence. What they do not see is the dining room table where the real work happens. I grew up in a family where money was never talked about in public, but it was the curriculum of our home every single day. We did not learn about money from bankers or professors. We learned it from fathers, from grandfathers, from uncles who built empires from the dust up. In our tradition, we do not view raising a child as simply keeping them fed and clothed until they are 18. We view it as building the next pillar of a dynasty. And you do not build a pillar out of soft material. You forge it, you test it, you give it weight to bear. Let me tell you the greatest poison that has infiltrated modern parenting: the allowance. The idea that a child is owed money simply for existing, simply for breathing the air in your house. The West teaches this concept of an allowance, handing out $20 a week because a child made their bed or took out the trash. Listen to me very carefully. You do not pay a child to participate in their own household. Taking out the trash is the rent they pay for living under your roof. Making the bed is the baseline of discipline. When you pay a child for basic chores, you are training an employee. You are training someone to expect a reward for doing the bare minimum of human existence. In an Arab household, we do not raise employees. We raise builders. We raise owners. We raise patriarchs and matriarchs. My father never gave me a dime for doing my chores. If my room was a mess, there was a consequence, not a loss of income. Money was entirely separate. Money was tied to value creation. If I wanted money, I had to create value. I had to go to his shop. I had to negotiate a task that actually helped his business. I had to clean the inventory or count the stock or help the delivery drivers load the trucks. I was 5, then 7, then 10 years old, doing real labor that impacted the bottom line. He gave me a job, not a handout, and the psychological difference is massive. When a child receives an allowance, they learn how to wait. They wait for Friday. They wait for the end of the month. They wait for the handout. When a child is given an opportunity to earn, they learn how to hunt. They look for problems to solve. I remember walking into my father's shop at 9 years old, looking around, and telling him that the front windows were filthy and driving away customers. I offered to wash them every morning before school for a set price. He negotiated me down, of course, because he was an Arab merchant, but we shook on it. I created my own job. That is the mindset we instill. You do not wait for the market to hand you something. You find the dirt, you clean it, and you get paid. But earning the money is only the first step. Any fool can make $1. Keeping it, growing it, and giving it dignity is where the true education begins. Let us go back to those 3 envelopes, because that system is the foundation of everything my family has built for 4 generations. The first envelope, the giving envelope, is perhaps the most important. Notice that my father did not say, "We will put this in a charity box and forget about it." He said, "You are going to hand it to the person yourself." There is a profound cultural and spiritual reason for this. In our tradition, giving is not just an obligation, it is an act of purification. But if you do not look the person in the eye when you give, your ego grows. You start to think you are a savior. My father made me take my $1, which eventually became $10, and then $100, and hand it to the man sweeping the street or the widow who lived down the alley. I had to look them in the eye, and my father taught me to always say thank you when handing over the money. Think about that. You are the one giving the money, but you say thank you. Why? Because you are thanking them for giving you the opportunity to fulfill your duty. You are thanking them for taking the burden of wealth off your shoulders. This destroys arrogance in a child. It destroys the entitlement that destroys wealthy families. When my sons were young, I made them do the exact same thing. A child who learns to give with humility will never be owned by their money. They understand that wealth is a flowing river, not a stagnant pond. If you dam the river, the water goes toxic. You must let it flow. Then comes the second envelope, the spending envelope. This is where many strict parents make a critical mistake. They want their kids to save every single penny. They shame them for wanting a toy or a sweet. What happens when you do that? You create a scarcity mindset. You create a child who will grow up to be a millionaire, but will live like a beggar because they are terrified of spending. Wealth without enjoyment is just a different kind of poverty. My father was very clear. The money in the spending envelope was mine, no rules. If I wanted to blow it all on a ridiculous toy that would break in 2 days, he let me buy it. He watched me buy it. He watched the toy break, and he watched me cry over the wasted money. He did not say, "I told you so." He just let the market teach me the lesson. By the time I was 12 years old, I had already made every stupid purchasing mistake a person can make. But I made them with $5 stakes instead of $50,000 stakes. The West protects their children from financial mistakes until they are 18, and then they send them out into the world to take out massive loans for useless degrees or buy cars they cannot afford. We let our children fail at age 7 so they are bulletproof by age 17. You must teach a child how to consume without being consumed. You must teach them the weight of a purchase. Today, my daughters are brilliant investors, and part of the reason is that I let them waste their own money on foolish things when they were little girls. They felt the sting of a bad deal early on. But the real magic, the absolute core of our generational wealth system, lives in the third envelope, the investment envelope. Remember what my father did? He matched it. Every week he would sit down at the dining table with me. He would open his own wallet, pull out $1, and put it next to my $2. He became the bank. He became the institution. He showed me that capital attracts capital. This is how you teach a child about compound interest without ever using a math textbook. I watched my stack of money grow faster than my physical labor could justify. I realized that my hands could only earn so much, but my money could work 24 hours a day. When I turned 10 years old, my father took the money from that third envelope. It was a few $100s by then. He did not take me to a bank to open a savings account that pays nothing. He took me to the gold souk, the gold market. He walked me into a shop owned by a man he had known for 40 years. They drank tea, they talked about family, and then my father pushed me forward. He told me to buy a gold coin with my envelope money. I handed over the cash and the merchant handed me a heavy, solid gold sovereign. My father told me to hold it in my hand. Feel the weight of it. He said, "This is real money. The paper you gave him is just paper. This gold is the earth. It survives fires. It survives wars. It survives governments." From that day on, I understood the difference between currency and assets. We do not teach our children to hoard cash. Cash is a tool. We teach them to convert cash into assets as quickly and quietly as possible. Land, gold, businesses, things that outlast a human lifespan. Listen to me, because this is where the cultural divide becomes painfully obvious. I see these Western families, incredibly wealthy families, who raise their children in absolute luxury. The kids drive luxury cars at 16. They wear designer clothes. They fly first class. And yet, the parents refuse to teach them the inner workings of the family business because they want the kids to find their own passion. What a beautiful, disastrous lie. Passion is a luxury for the rich man who has already secured his bloodline. In an Arab family, teaching your child a trade, teaching them the family business, is a sacred obligation. It is not an option. You do not let a child wander aimlessly looking for passion while the family empire sits unguarded. From the moment my sons could walk, they were in the majlis. The majlis is the sitting room, the reception area where men gather to drink coffee, discuss politics, resolve disputes, and do business. In our culture, the children are allowed in the room. They are expected to pour the coffee. They serve the guests. But more importantly, they are expected to listen. They sit in the corner and they listen to the men negotiate. They listen to the tone of voice. They watch the body language. They learn how a deal is constructed. By the time an Arab boy is 15, he has silently witnessed hundreds of high-stakes negotiations. He knows when someone is bluffing. He knows when to stay quiet. You cannot teach that in a university. You can only teach that through immersion. I brought my sons to every property inspection, every supplier meeting, every difficult termination. I did not shield them from the stress of business. I exposed them to it so they could build calluses. And this brings me to a rule that you must understand if you want to build wealth that lasts beyond your own funeral. It is the rule of silence, the silence code. In our culture, we have a deep spiritual understanding of envy, the evil eye. Whether you view it as a spiritual reality or a psychological phenomenon, the truth remains the same. Human jealousy is a destructive force. When you announce your plans, when you show off your unfinished victories, you invite the resentment of those who are not moving forward. People want to see you do well, but never better than them. We teach our children to move in absolute silence. You buy the land in secret. You get the permits in secret. You build the foundation in secret. And you only invite the public when the roof is on and the doors are open. The loudest moves are always the ones made in silence. Do you understand this, Habibi? You look at modern social media and everyone is announcing their next move. They are posting pictures of the cars they just leased, the offices they just rented, the deals they have not even closed yet. It is foolishness. It is the behavior of peasants who have stumbled upon a gold coin. Wealthy Arab families do not operate like this. If we buy a city block, you will not know until our name is already engraved on the stone. We teach our children to keep their mouths shut. You do not brag about your investments. You do not brag about your wealth. You do not show your hand. You live well, you dress cleanly, you carry yourself with dignity, but you never expose the depth of your treasury. This philosophy extends to everything, even marriage. We seek marriage in silence. We vet families in silence. We plan the future in silence. And then we celebrate with a massive feast in front of everyone. The celebration is public, but the construction is private. This protects the family from sabotage. When my eldest daughter was starting her first major business, she came to me very excited. She wanted to announce the concept online, to build hype. I told her no. I told her to build the product, secure the supply chain, lock in the first 10 clients, and only then could she make an announcement. She was frustrated, but she listened. 3 months later, a competitor tried to launch the exact same concept, but because my daughter had built her infrastructure in the dark, she was able to launch immediately and crush them. She came to me afterward and said, "You were right. Silence is a weapon. It is a shield. It is the armor of the successful. When you talk too much, you bleed energy. You give away the momentum that you should be putting into the work itself." I see young men today talking about the empires they are going to build, the millions they are going to make. And I know, just by listening to them, that they will fail. The man who is busy laying bricks does not have the breath to shout about his wall. Let us talk about the family council, because this is the mechanism that keeps the wealth from scattering into the wind. Have you ever wondered why Arab families can own massive conglomerates for generations, while Western families often sell the business the moment the founder dies? The statistics are brutal. In the West, wealth rarely survives past the third generation. The first generation builds it, the second maintains it, and the third destroys it. Why? Because the West prioritizes extreme individualism. The individual is greater than the family. In our culture, the family is greater than the individual. We operate as a unit, a sovereign state. We have the family council. When the patriarch passes away, the core assets are never split. If my father leaves behind a block of apartments, my brothers and I do not sell the building and split the cash. That is considered a betrayal of the bloodline. We keep the building intact. We share the revenue. We appoint the most capable brother, usually the eldest, to manage the asset. The eldest son carries a heavy burden in our culture. He is not just an heir, he is the designated protector. He is responsible for ensuring his sisters are taken care of, his younger brothers are guided, and the family wealth is multiplied. We teach our children from a very young age that the money they inherit is not theirs to spend, it is theirs to manage. They are stewards of a treasury that belongs to their unborn grandchildren. This requires discipline, and discipline starts at the dinner table. We do not eat in front of televisions. We do not eat in separate rooms. The dinner table is the boardroom of the family. It is where values are transferred. Every evening we sit down together. Phones are removed, distractions are eliminated, and we talk. We talk about the business. We talk about the community. We talk about history. If a child makes a mistake during the day, it is addressed at the table, not with shouting, but with logic. We ask them, "Why did you do that? What was the expected outcome? How does this reflect on your last name?" A child must understand that their name is a brand, a reputation built over centuries by people they will never meet. They do not have the right to drag that name through the mud because of a temporary lack of discipline. We protect our children's mindset fiercely. We do not let them associate with people who have a poverty mindset. And let me be clear, a poverty mindset has nothing to do with how much money is in your bank account. I have known billionaires with a poverty mindset, and I have known poor laborers with the mindset of kings. A poverty mindset is complaining, it is blaming others, it is jealousy. It is the belief that life is happening to you, rather than you creating your life. If we see our children bringing friends around who whine, who lack respect for their elders, who have no ambition, we cut that tie immediately. We intervene. You are the average of the people you surround yourself with, and as a parent, it is your absolute duty to curate your child's environment until they are strong enough to curate it themselves. Do you see the architecture of this? It is not about simply giving a child money. Handing $1 million to an untrained mind is like handing a loaded weapon to a toddler. It will end in tragedy. It is about building a psychological fortress around the child. We teach them to earn through the first envelope, so they know the sweat required to create value. We teach them to give, so they never become slaves to their own ego. We teach them to spend, so they understand the mechanics of the market without fear. We teach them to invest, so they understand that money is a worker, not a master. We bring them into the room with men of consequence, so they learn the language of power and negotiation. We teach them the code of silence, so they can build their empires without interference from the envious. And we bind them to the family unit, so they understand that they are part of a chain that stretches back into the past and forward into the future. My grandfather was a trader. He moved goods across borders before there were paved roads. He could barely read a book, but he could read a man's soul in 3 seconds. He built a fortune, lost it all in a market crash, and built it back twice as big before he died. He used to sit me on his knee, his hands rough like sandpaper, and he would tell me stories of men who had everything and lost it because they forgot who they were. He told me that wealth is a guest. If you treat the guest with respect, if you give it a clean house and a purpose, it will stay for generations. If you disrespect the guest, if you boast about it, if you use it to harm others, the guest will leave in the middle of the night and never return. I have seen the guest leave so many families. I have seen great names reduced to nothing but memories and dusty photographs. The West teaches their children to get good grades so they can get good jobs and work for somebody else until they are 65, hoping to retire with a fraction of what they produced. They raise their children to be perfect cogs in a machine they do not own. We teach our children differently. We teach them to own the machine. We teach them to buy the land the machine sits on. We teach them to finance the building that houses the machine. It is a completely different operating system. When you start this process at age 5, with a few dollars and some envelopes, you are planting an oak tree. You will not see the shade of that tree for a long time. You will water it. You will protect it from the wind. You will prune the branches. It requires patience. But by the time that child is 10 years old, they will understand the flow of capital. By the time they are 15, they will understand the psychology of leverage. And by the time they are 20, they will be unstoppable. They will not be intimidated by the world because they have been practicing in the real world since they could barely see over the counter of the shop. Look at your own life. Look at how you were raised, and look at how you are raising your children. Are you handing them a fish, or are you teaching them how to own the ocean? Are you giving them an allowance for breathing, or are you giving them a business? Are you letting them complain and blame the world, or are you demanding excellence at the dinner table? It is never too late to change the trajectory of your bloodline. You can be the patriarch or matriarch who draws a line in the sand and says, "The poverty ends with me, the ignorance ends with me, the weakness ends with me. From this day forward, we build. We build in silence. We build with honor. We build for the grandchildren we will never meet." If this resonated with you, if you understand the weight of what I am saying, subscribe to this channel. Comment below and tell me how you are building your family's foundation. Share this with a father or a mother who needs to hear it. And if you are still here, Habibi, follow for more. We have a lot of work to do.